name is Craig Spears. I was diagnosed in November 2013 with neuroendocrine cancer of the small bowel. I have metastases to my liver. I first heard about clinical trials probably through social media. Um, and like most patients, I'm not sure I really had much knowledge of clinical trials and how they worked. There's a lot of kind of, well, I would say myths now. So I probably had a view at the beginning, was a clinical trial safe? I probably thought clinical trials were more suitable for patients when there was no other treatments available to be offered. And now, having been involved in a clinical trial, I realise that that's not the case. Um, like I say, I found out about my trial through my oncologist. I've always had a very good rapport with my team. I've always tried to maximise every appointment I have with them and discuss options. Um, for me as a patient, I'm at my calmest when I know that I have treatment options out there. Um, so I'm always, I've been unlucky over the last 13 years that near enough every year I've been on some form of treatment for the last 13 years. And at first, I wasn't sure if that was the right option, as there was multiple treatment options available to me at that point in time. And my team were very good. They gave me the information. They said that I was a candidate for this trial, and I took the information away, and they gave me a time to read through that information. My clinical nurse specialist at the time, she was very good as well. She phoned me up to ask if I had any questions away from clinic after I had been given some time to read through the information, which was very good, and also suggested I speak to my family and my wife about it as well, and that's what I did. So I took some time to read through the information and then come to that decision that I wanted to be involved in the trial. And I made this decision because I've always said that I want to be part of finding a new treatment. I see every day on social media how excited patients get when they see a social media post or a news advert about a possible treatment in neuroendocrine cancer. And I wanted to be part of that. And the information that my team gave me and the fact that they felt this was a suitable treatment, and also the fact that my oncologist had used this drug before on a different type of cancer, it gave me that confidence that it was an option for me. So I decided to go along with the trial. I was very lucky that my team brought the clinical trial forward to me. I'm not sure in the early days that I would have had the knowledge to go out and seek clinical trials and go to my team with that idea of being a clinical trial. But it's all about having that rapport with your team and having that communication with your team and making them aware that it's something you would consider if the right information was put forward to you and you can make that decision. To me, it's your team's job to bring the clinical trials forward to you, but it's your job as a patient to make your team aware that it's something you would consider now and in the future. My experience of the trial was, I would say to people, I was a gold standard patient at that point in time. You're used to seeing your team maybe every 8 weeks or every 6 months or every year, and being scanned once a year. For a clinical trial, it's completely different. In the beginning, I was seen on a weekly basis. And really, in the first week, I was phoned every day by my clinical nurse specialist to make sure that I was okay and I was following the routine that I was supposed to follow. I was scanned every 12 weeks. I had echocardiograms. There was above the normal required treatment, the normal required surveillance for a patient with urinary cancer, well above that. I felt completely safe and completely looked after all the time. Anything that I reported to the team symptom wise was taken seriously, was noted and documented, and sent off to the team who were running the trial. if I felt there was times where I felt that the symptoms were affecting my quality of life, the they decided to lower the dosage of that so that my quality of life was better on that drug. So it wasn't just a case of this is what you're taking and this is what's happening, and there was no flexibility in it. At any point in time, they looked after the care of me all the way through that trial, even up to the point where I wasn't able to finish the clinical trial as unfortunately my cancer progressed, and that decision was taken to take me off the trial and put me on a new form of treatment, which fortunately made me stable after that. Um, and that gave me confidence that if I was ever to look at a clinical trial in the future, then I'm now far more aware of what the process is, and the myth that I had before, where I felt there was some sort of risk for a patient being on it, um, just weren't true. I was very, very well looked after all the way through it. And when my scans did show a sign of progression, the decision was made quite quickly to move me on to a different treatment. Before I went on to the clinical trial, I had an echocardiogram, and that echocardiogram picked up early signs of carcinoid heart disease that I was showing no symptoms for. So if I hadn't been on the clinical trial, how much longer down the line would I have went before picking up that carcinoid heart disease? And I ended up having open heart surgery maybe a year and a half after the clinical trial. And I've had another heart surgery since then. So it became quite a serious problem for me. And it was only picked up because I entered that clinical trial. So that's just an idea of how well you're looked after in a clinical trial. That echocardiogram may never have happened, or may not have happened in the next year, because I was showing no signs or symptoms of anything wrong with my heart. And that was a prerequisite of entering that clinical trial, was that you must have an echocardiogram done, and it picked up a trace regurgitation. I would say talk to your team, have a good rapport with your team, make them aware that this is something that you would be interested in. Because from what I heard from my oncologist is that they struggle to get patients um, to be beyond a clinical trial, and they struggle to get candidates for clinical trials sometimes. So if you're not telling your team that there's something you would consider in the future, maybe they won't consider you. Um, I fortunately was a candidate for this trial, so even if you want to go on a clinical trial, sometimes you might not be a candidate for it. But always express to your team that it's something that you would like to look at in the future. Um, and I've been on one trial, and the way I was treated on that trial, I would definitely be interested in supporting future trials. Um, there's nothing to be scared about, and if we're not part of the solution, we're part of the problem. So if you expect to have better treatments in the future for all patients, then we need to make ourselves available for clinical trials. That's my view personally. And some people will say that that's an easier decision for me to make because I was a younger patient and still am a younger patient. Um, However, when I went through my clinical trial, my son was just born. He was 4 months old, and my wife had returned to work. And I had to balance being a young father and looking after my son as well as being on a clinical trial. So it was not easier for me to make that decision to be on a trial. It was a decision that I made personally, and a decision that I'm glad I made.